think it's atrociously rich. But the pictures aren't bad, look.
Hello. Yes, we have gathered here once again, this time to discuss the fifth episode of the Key to Time season, which is the Power of Kroll. First up, talking about Kroll, I'm going to go to our very own Lee Wilson. Go ahead, Lee.
What shall I say about the Power of Kroll? It's people give this one a bit of stick, really, but for me, it's an enjoyable four-parter. A simple story told about simple folk who live in swamps, who happen to be green. But it says that Tom Baker is on top form again, and said Mary Tam, excellent. This time with Marnus Kanan. Kanan's not in this one at all, but we do have John Leeson appearing as a character in the refinery. She's gives him a chance to get out the box and off his all fours. But yeah, it's a very good story, and we've got Philip Maddock as one of the refinery workers, which he was a brilliant actor, and it's a shame he wasn't the main villain in this. To me, every other episode he's been in, Brain and Morbius and the War Games, he played brilliant villains. And this one, he should have played Thorn in this and not Fenner, because the actor played Thorn, to me, didn't come across as a very good villain. So I think there was just a bit of miscasting. The realisation of the Kroll creature, I thought the model was brilliant, totally brilliant in that. And the scene with the sacrifice in Romana, where all the swampies are dancing and the gates are closing, I think that's a sort of a little homage to the original King Kong. We're all dancing and shooting on a smaller scale, shall we say. But it's a brilliant setting, and I didn't envy all the actors, the crew, working in boggy mash. I mean, you see them sinking in it, and at least the costume designer gave Mary Tam a good costume to wear in this one. She wasn't heels, skirt. She had thick clothing on. So I think, they thought about her in this one. So, it was, for me, it's a good one. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10.
Thank you, Lee. An 8 out of 10. Yes, there you have it. So now let's see what James has to say about this one.
Hello, thank you. Power of Kroll. I remember watching this about 6 years old. One of the second or third episodes I watched on VHS tape, and I loved it at the time. I was very scared of Kroll, even the knockoff Kroll from the sacrificial scene, which we can obviously see now is not Kroll, right? However, I did find it fun. I agree with Lee's point on the villain. I think that was a miscast. Not really thought about it entirely before, but I do agree with him. Probably would have been better the other way around. Tom Baker, as always, is brilliant. Even in the scene where they're all tied up, with the sun, it's just brilliant. I've never laughed so much. I mean, even rewatching it this week, I hear a lot of people talking a lot of rubbish about it. Oh, I hate this episode, it's all rubbish. But the effects for the time, the Swampies, did they have to be green? No, you didn't have to make them green. Did they make them green? Yes. Probably shouldn't have done that, but hey, at least they went for the effort. I personally find the refinery, the set for the refinery, yeah, it's kind of corridors-ish, but I like the actual model. I thought the model was quite clever. At the end with Kroll and the realization that he's actually one of the segments. I think that's spoiler alert, by the way. You should realize that's one of the segments. But the model itself at the end scene with Kroll attacking the refinery, that was fantastic. That's one of the best scenes I've seen in Classic Who. I loved it. A lot of people dislike it, but I like it myself. So for me, this story is easily an 8.5 out of 10. Love it.
An 8.5. Yes, he says he loves it. Thank you, James. Now let's move on over to Alistair, surrounded by all her little Krolls.
Hello. As you can see, I have been indoctrinated into the cult of Kroll. A shame, really. My thoughts on this episode, I gotta agree that I liked overall how they did it, and I really liked overall, like, the effects for the time and that. It was kind of funny, like, seeing the guy dressed up as Kroll, and, like, my first thought was, there's no way anyone's gonna fall for that, right? Because it was kind of like, well, like last time with the Androids of Tara, when the guy showed up in a costume. I mean, it was this time it was a very, very good costume. Like, I would say, like, it reminded me a lot of the beetle creatures from the Dark Crystal. Something like that. Like, when you're a kid, that kind of thing is terrifying to you. But, like, when you're an adult looking at it, it's like, oh, that's a guy in a suit. And lo and behold, that was actually part of the plot. There was a guy in a suit. And I thought that was actually very clever. This episode, I gotta say, I don't know what the criticism of it is exactly. I think it handles kind of a tough subject. It's a story that's been done before, and I think, personally, I think this has been done really well. Of course, I'm coming from a more American-centric view. The Swampies are an interesting people. And when you look at the leaders of the leader of the Swampy and the leader of the refinery people, they're almost foils to each other. They're mirrors. They're both very, as much as they're wanting to drive the other person out, they're almost fanatical in how they're going about it. The refinery leader went so far as to set up a whole plot to frame another group that was a problem for him so that it would fall on them when he got rid of them, because no one would criticize him. Oh, it's not your fault. At best, it would probably be something like, they riled up those Swampies, those poor, simple, innocent people. We could have all worked together, but these guys, they're the ones who told them that they had to go to war. You did the right thing. You did the right thing. And I think, honestly, he really believed that he was going to be able to achieve that. In the end, he doesn't. I think it's a very serious subject on some respects, because of the fact it talks about the fact that Kroll had the power of the key part, because the Swampies had made an exodus from one of the moons where they originally lived to the planet. And they even cover, like, Romana asks, why are they called the Sons of Earth? And it's very important because they no longer live there. They're attached to a planet that we have drained of all of its resources. That's why those people were there. That's why they were doing the protein tap, which I just really loved the science behind that. I mean, science fiction, but it was really cool. Like, when the doctor was like, you could do better if you did this. And it's like, it's just interesting to me, because as much as they saw the Swampies as being a very simple people, when you look at it, I think the doctor kind of thinks that way about a lot of people, since he's been to the future and the past and has this great knowledge of everything. And then when he sees things unfolding, he's just like, oh, this is cool to see. This is cute. I'm going to have to agree with Lee. I'm going to give the episode an 8 as well. I think it was pretty well done for the subject matter, and I think it was well done for the effects of the time.
An 8 from Alistair too. Thank you, Alistair. And now let's move on over to our editor-in-chief, Jimmy Porto. What do you have to say about this one, Jimmy?
First, I disagree with Lee. I think that Neil McCarthy was great as the villain. When the episode first starts, I was laughing at it. I thought, oh, the sets are so bad. The costumes look like something from Thunderbirds, Rejected. And then came who would become the villain of the piece, Neil McCarthy, and his acting just astounded me. So much that I looked him up to find out what else he's been in and what happened to him, and he died tragically at the age of 52. He was born with something that gave him too much growth hormone, which is why he was so tall. And that, in the end, gave him some sort of aneurysm, which killed him. But I thought his acting was terrific. I thought he was great as the villain. Would Philip Maddock have been better? That's debatable. But I think as the villain in the piece, he was terrific. This episode, the powers that be ordered them to write an episode that had the biggest monster ever in Doctor Who's history, but also told them to tone down the humor. I don't see the humor as being toned down in the episode.
The Great One condemns the prisoners to die by the seventh holy ritual of the old book. Seventh, my lucky number.
The episode, however, has problems. We're supposed to feel sorry for the Swampies. But the Swampies are going to perform a human sacrifice. They were going to kill Romana. How are we supposed to be sympathetic for a group of people that are willing to kill someone in a ritual blood sacrifice? Also, where are the women? There are no women in the tribe. All Thorne had to do was just wait for him to die of natural causes or whatever. It's not even addressed on how they reproduce. They're called Swampies instead of Darkies. It's obvious where the parallel is, but they don't seem to have a name for themselves. So in that regard, it starts to fall apart. In fact, Robert Holmes was so disappointed with this episode, he stayed away from Doctor Who for 5 years. Like I said, you don't see the humor as being toned down at all.
He is crazy. Will you stop saying that? What gives him an insight into my mental processes?
There's a lot of humorous scenes in there, and there's one scene where, to me, it looks like the actor, again, Neil McCarthy, forgot his line, and so the doctor said it for him.
Put your hands where I can see them and walk straight ahead.
Haven't you forgotten something?
What?
Shouldn't you say, don't make any sudden moves?
Don't make any sudden moves. Now get straight to the center.
Also, it looks like that Tom Baker, as the doctor, gave the middle finger to the high priest on purpose.
What do we get this time? The eighth holy ritual?
I would give the episode the special effect of Kroll. I thought for that time was actually a very good job. But I would still give the episode only, despite Neil McCarthy, I would give the episode only a 5 out of 10 because it does start to fall apart. I don't see how you can feel sympathetic to the Swampies at all.
Let's see what Beef Dad has to say about this episode. Go ahead, Beef Dad.
Well, I disagree with Jim on a couple of things. I think it's rather hard not to feel sympathetic to somebody who's green. And as far as the women of the tribe is concerned, someone must have knitted those awful green wigs. That being said, I loved the Swampies. I really enjoyed their performances. Everybody's gone on about Neil McCarthy and Philip Maddock. Nobody's mentioned Rum Dutt, played by Glyn Owen, bless him, who is, in England, best known for playing the senior doctor in one of the early soaps, Emergency Ward 10. Glyn Owen turned up in so many things. Danger Man, all sorts. He turned up in everything during that period. Excellent actor. I loved Carl Rigg as Varlic. I really did enjoy his performance. And Judd Leeson as Dougie, bless him. It was nice to actually see him on screen rather than just hear him doing K9. I think that was the first time that he'd been seen on screen, which is great. Great stuff. Terry Walsh played Mensch. And in German, that actually means mankind. So, yeah, interesting. But, I loved the effects. I certainly loved the seabed effects where they were doing the sound echoes off the seabed and could see this damn thing. Under the water on the seabed moving about. And then the next thing you know, a dirty great big, he said carefully, tentacle smashes its way through the pipe and pulls in one of the guys. That for me was great fun. I really enjoyed it. I don't think at any point I felt bored or my attention wandered. I was focused. It kept me focused, and I really enjoyed it for that. So for me, yes, I'll go along. It gives me, it's an 8 out of 10 for me.
So there you have it. Beef Dad wasn't bored, and he gave it an 8 out of 10. So let's see if Jason wasn't bored too.
The story itself did not bore me at all. I actually quite enjoyed this one as well. What Beef Dad said about the actors, there's about 6 actors that's been in more than one story of Doctor Who that appeared in there. I definitely quite enjoyed it with the whole Swampy situation. The Swampy deal, just like worshipping Quo, like Quo's like the god and stuff, like thinking he can hear what Quo says, I guess. But I had no problem with Thorne as being Neil McCartney, and also Philip Madrick as being Fennel. I mean, I think the characters are definitely quite good, so I had no problem with that. Ramona's definitely did a fantastic job. Tom Baker's definitely did a fantastic job. The characters are definitely great. I mean, I love the effects of Quo. Quo is like, in a way, if he was like in their point of view and seeing how big Quo is, it probably would be very scary right at the moment, just being standing out there, seeing how huge Quo is. I mean, I definitely love the effects, how they had Quo trying to attack the building a bit. And then you got Tom Baker with the segment stick and trying to go after the Quo, but then we find out it was a segment. I mean, definitely, I really enjoyed it. I mean, it did have a dull moment with Twan getting killed by the Swampies. I mean, they would probably done a little bit more better with it, but because besides the Swampies came out of nowhere, attacked Twan with the arrow, so that came about unexpectedly. But in a way, the story was definitely pretty great. I definitely enjoyed it. I give it an 8.5 out of 10.
An 8.5 from Jason. So what do I think? Well, this isn't my favorite of the Key to Time stories. In fact, it's not as good as the Pirate Planet or the Stones of Blood, and it's not as good as the last one we watched, which is Androids of Tara. But it is enjoyable. I think Kroll is really well realized. You know, I think Kroll is great. I think they did him well. It could have been a lot worse. You know, it could have been awful, to be honest. It could have really been awful. But Kroll and the effects and the tentacles coming out of the bushes and things like that, and, you know, grabbing people and whatnot, it's very good. I think Kroll is done really well. Mary Tam, as always, is fantastic. You know, like I say, so underrated. You know, one of the things that I like about, you know, rewatching these episodes, like rewatching this Key to Time series, is that I really appreciate actors that I've mostly forgotten about. Like Mary Tam is mostly forgotten. And when you watch it back, you can really appreciate her, you know, and then you got Tom Baker. Well, he's always fantastic. And the rest of the cast, they do a good job. I think they do a good job. And I think this episode is sponsored by the Green Giant. I'm not too sure. There's a lot of green in this episode. I'm a bit greened out, to be honest. Even the front of the case is green. So, you know, I'll be pretty happy if I don't see green for a while.
But there's no need to be smug about it.
But anyway, I'm going to stop rambling now. I think, I will give it, I've been thinking about this. I'm going to give it an 8. Yeah, I'm going to give it an 8. So I'm going to throw the floor open to whoever wants to speak.
Well, I've got two things to say, Alid.
Only 2?
At the end, only 2. Up to now, only 2.
I'll be counting.
There's only there's one niggle.
No more than 2.
There's one niggle, and that's when Tom Baker was trying and struggling to get the segment thing from Kroll, you know, trying to touch Kroll with the tentacles wrapped around him. Why didn't he just touch the tentacle? with the stick instead of reaching and reaching. The tentacle was around him. Just touch the tentacle. That's a slight niggle there.
I can't keep a straight face.
I said I said tentacle. And the other thing is, episode 2 of this story, ratings wise, reached 12.4 million. It was the highest rated Doctor Who story back in the day. This in 1978.
Really? I didn't know that.
12.4 million. That was just episode 2. They're saying that was because it was like New Year's Eve, but we don't. That's a high scoring for just one episode.
Yeah, no, that is good. Wow, I'm impressed.
The green makeup that they used for the Swampies came from Germany. But the funny thing was they forgot to order the special solvent for taking it off. So they had to take him to an RAF establishment to try and clean the makeup off. And a lot of them walked around tinged green for weeks afterwards. So Swampies do exist.
When you were mentioning before the effects, Alid, I agree. It could have been much worse. It could have been the Merca. You know, there's many things we have had in Doctor Who which have been beyond, okay, I'm going to have to accept this is not real anymore. I've lost it, you know. Kroll is not one of those things. It works. In fact, I think it's one of the stronger parts of the story. Where Jimmy was mentioning before, do I feel sorry for the Swampies? Do I feel sorry for the Swampies? No, they're kind of douches, to be honest, most of the time. You know, they're trying to kill their own guy. Oh, he's a traitor. We're going to shoot him. Oh, I'm dead. Oh, he just died. I don't really care. He just died. Oh, Kroll just killed him. I don't really care about that either. They're not really nice guys, to be honest. I wasn't really on their side, but it is an amusing story. So yeah.
I watched the commentary on this one, and it said that K9, the person who created K9, also created Kroll.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the person who created K9 created Kroll. So, and I agree. I think Kroll's really good. I think this episode. Let's put it like this: if Kroll was awful, this episode would be awful, because Kroll was a big part of this episode.
Well, yeah, because it's built up. It's not shown straight away. It's one of those things where if it doesn't work, the whole story falls flat.
Yeah, and it works really well.
Also, in the Key of Time, this is the first time where the Key of Time is actually part of the episode, whereas the other ones leading up to this, you could have had the episode without the Key of Time and it would have made just as much sense. In this one, the Key of Time is part of the episode. The fact that the Key of Time had this effect on this squid that made him crawl is part of the narrative, and it shows just what the Key of Time is capable of, even when it's broken apart into different pieces. Whereas the other episodes leading up to this, it's just a piece, and it's not. You could have had the episode without the search for the piece, and it would have made just as much sense. In this one, it's actually part of the episode, so I give the episode that.
Yeah, and it's unintentionally part of the, obviously the squid didn't know what he consumed, right? I mean, we could have had, thinking of it like that, we could have had someone in the early episodes, perhaps with a staff, using one of the powers of the segments. What if we had someone using one of those segments as power source? It could have made an interesting story. I'm surprised they didn't do that in the end, if I'm honest.
There was also a connection because, where they were going to have the sacrifice, it was called the Stone of Blood, which sort of links it nicely to the Stones of Blood previously.
Does it?
I thought so. But then I've got my hat on the right way round.
Yes, that's true, yeah. You finally admitted it.
I had a thought.
Did you?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
I know. I thought of something. The reason why they're green and why they don't show anybody except for the males. They're plant people. They just grow a new one.
Could be.
Well, that's a fair point. That's a fair...
Actually, there's kind of a thought thread there. They could have done something with that, though. I I feel like I would have been more sympathetic towards the Swampies. Like I said, I have kind of mixed feelings about it because of obvious reasons. I would have been more sympathetic towards them, even with all the crazy stuff they do, because, come on, what good cult doesn't have a little bit of human sacrifice? If they had shown more about their history and more of that, but it's just glanced over. The Doctor finds a book and talks about it a little bit. But, other than, just we know they live on the swamp, that they're from the moon, and they're religious fanatics for a squid, we don't really know much about them. I mean, for goodness sake.
It's not explored, yeah. It's not explored.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah, as a thought. Everybody's been talking about Thorne and how Philip Maddock would have been better. Actually, both Neil McCarthy and Philip Maddock were offered the part, but Neil McCarthy got in first. And Philip Maddock only ended up playing the part that he did because the guy who was slated to play that part fell ill just before the recording.
You see, for me, this episode is I really like it, but it has obvious flaws. There are flaws that it has.
Not many, because most of it's in the swamp, and you don't have flaws in the swamp. You could ask Kroll, but he's now only about that big.
I got him right here.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
There he is. Ask him.
Have a word.
I'm not sure which one's actually him. I'm trying to discern that.
Oh, dear.
They all just kind of blub and bubble at me right now.
I don't think it's the orange one.
Is there one that's green?
Join Alistair every Thursday on Ask Kroll.
Yeah.
Maybe I will.
We're starting a Kroll show, everybody. We're starting a Kroll puppet show. So that's happening next weekend on this channel, a Kroll puppet show. So, put a thumbs up for that if you want, and comment below if you want a Kroll puppet show too. Does anybody else have anything to add on this?
One last thing. It never really, I know it's been said before, and it never really clicked to me how much Tennant based his Doctor around Baker until this episode. I've been watching through the Key of Time series, but for whatever reason, this episode kind of clicked it for me, because it's wait a minute, because Tennant had a lot of the same mannerisms as Baker. But
That's strange. That's strange, because Tennant always said that Davison was his favourite Doctor.
Yes, I thought he based it round Davison.
Well, he had to. His family.
Yeah, that was before.
He wasn't then.
Their inflection on words and sort of their thought process, at least in this episode, I was thinking very much of I can't think of the name of the episode, but for sure is the episode where the Christmas episode where his hand gets cut off.
Christmas Invasion. Yeah, the Christmas Invasion with the Sycorax.
And there was one other episode.
I love that episode.
But it just, the inflection, how the certain words that they said, and then the tangents he'd go off on, especially when they were tied up, it reminded me a lot of Tennant, and I was thinking, Tennant had to have based some of it. I know that was not the Doctor he said that he based it off of. But there's something there.
Or at least the writers for Tennant based it on Baker.
Well, also as well, you've got to realise every actor who has played the Doctor tries to incorporate some mannerisms from past Doctors anyway.
All the Doctors.
And Tom Baker is seen as the ultimate Doctor by many people. You have to remember that. Tom Baker is seen as the, number one. Well, obviously Pertwee is. We all know that. We all know Pertwee's number one, really. I mean...
Yeah, get away.
Yeah.
I'm not going to start arguing with you.
Oh, no, because it's William Hartnell for you.
Well...
I have a lot of love for Eccleston, but they're all
I love them all. No, I do. I love them all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Apart from Matt.
That's simple. They are all the Doctor.
Yeah, they are. That's true. They are all the Doctor, yeah. Does anybody else have anything to add? Nope. All right, then. Well, that's your lot for tonight. And I would like to thank everybody here for joining me. As always, I would like to thank you for watching. And don't forget to give us a like, give us a subscribe, Yes, do hit that subscribe button, comment below. And I would like to thank Jimmy, because Jimmy usually edits these videos together and makes us all look very good, because we're not that good really. He makes us look a lot better. Yes, he does. So from everybody here, as always, stay safe, keep happy, and keep on hooing.